weather affects everything, from how we feel to how we live. But what's really going on above us? Each week on Atmospheric Insight, we dig deeper into the science of weather and the stories it shapes. This is Atmospheric Insight, where science meets the sky.
Welcome back to our second ever episode of Atmospheric Insight. I'm one of your hosts, meteorologist Adam Epstein, joined by meteorologist Riley O'Connor. Riley, hello, how you doing?
Hey, thanks, Adam. Doing well. Had a great Labor Day weekend and holiday. How was yours?
It was really nice. It was a little bit on the hotter side, right?
Yeah,
Temperatures near 100,
it was.
but it was a nice weekend. Even then, I got outside, enjoyed some sunshine. But this brings us to our major topic today. It's summer, right? And it turns out there are multiple definitions of summer.
Mhm,
Meteorological summer is the one that's most important to us.
mhm,
Statistically, it's the hottest quarter of the year,
mhm.
June, July, August. And now that is officially over. But there's also astronomical summer. That has to do with the angle of the sun's rays hitting Earth. That starts around June 20th, ends around September 20th. It's September 22nd this year. And then the last one, which is kind of like anecdotal, right?
Right.
It's based on the holidays. Starts Memorial Day, ends Labor Day. All right. So that type of summer is over too as people go back to school
Yep.
and you expect temperatures to start cooling down. But here in Sac, that's not always the case.
Right. I feel like you just can never say it's the end of summer, right? That's what we say unofficial. But still, we have so many hot days after Labor Day or even warmer days, before Memorial Day. But I think a lot of people really transition that, get out the barbecues. It's time, Memorial Day. Get that last barbecue in for Labor Day, even though it can go well past that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you made it through your first summer in Sacramento. I feel like without much strife, like there wasn't too much pain heat wise. What do you think of it?
It wasn't actually. I mean, I knew the climate here. I know it gets very hot. We had days that were over 100 degrees. I think our hottest was 103, but honestly, it was relatively normal and I felt like a cool summer in a way. I mean, I know that we had several days in a row of 100-degree heat, but it really didn't affect my plans outside. I still did things. So all in all, compared to last year, I will say, from what I heard, I wasn't
Yeah, you weren't
here,
here. You heard, right?
but a pretty decent summer.
Yeah, I would say so too. So, with that, let's jump into atmospheric impacts, our first segment, where we'll be talking about summer and breaking down some of the statistics. First things first, let's talk about August. The month ended, and we look back at the high temperatures. Anything surprise you? Anything jump out to you, Riley?
I think it's really the mid 80s. When you see temperatures in the mid 80s when our averages are the lower 90s, right around 92 degrees. I mean, that's a real significant difference. And I think, it impacts people in many different ways. First of all,
Mhm.
it really saves on the electric bills, right? I mean, it
Absolutely.
definitely helps to
Yeah.
open those windows and, you get the overnight lows that are in the 50s and the lower 60s and it's just comfortable. So I think really looking at the map first compared to previous years, not seeing so many 100s, not seeing so many red days on there, you see more blue.
Yeah, and it's a fair mix. And we've definitely see weather go in swings here.
Mhm,
Stretch of cool weather, stretch of warm weather, and we ended on a hotter note. And the last 2 days of the month, 101 degrees each. And
mhm.
then the first 2 days of September, also in the triple digits. So that constituted our third heat wave of the year, of the summer season here in
Yep.
Sacramento. And when you crunch all these numbers, not just the highs, but you look at the lows as well, the average comes out to 77.4, which is a little bit above normal for
Mm,
August in Sacramento. It's not anything, extreme, but temperatures, like I said,
right.
felt pretty good in the 80s, never too hot,
Yeah.
but still slightly above normal for us.
Right. And I think too, even being newer here to the Sacramento area, you walk outside and it gets hot, triple
Hmm.
digits. But last weekend I was in the pool, went to a public pool with my kids, and we found a shaded area. We stayed hydrated and we were in the water. It felt relaxing and nice, even though
Yeah.
you look at the temperatures like, okay, it was in the triple digits.
I think I found out that anything 105 or hotter, it's just that's too much. Like that's the limit for me. Even in the
Right.
shade, it's just not pleasant. And when you're in the sun, it's 105 to 110.
Uh,
I thought like I could handle heat. I cannot handle
right.
that. It feels like you're baking out there. All right, let's go into our Sacramento summer summary. So this looks specifically at those 3 months of
Mhm,
meteorological summer, June, July, August. Our 100-degree day count went up to 11,
mhm,
and the average is 13, so
mhm,
pretty close there. And this next one is something I want to talk about more. Our hottest temperature,
mhm.
103. We've actually hit that twice.
Yeah.
The average hottest temperature in a year in Sacramento, when you crunch those numbers, comes out to 106.
Mhm.
So we were below that mark. And this is the coolest max temperature in the summer season since 2011,
Hmm.
14 years when we were at 102.
Hmm.
So your first summer, you are so lucky, it seems, right?
Right. I will take that. I have to say. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, Adam. Is the all-time high? It's 115, right?
Yes, the all-time hottest temperature in Sacramento is 115.
Okay.
And then before that, we've been to 114 a couple times,
Yep.
and most recently a couple years ago. So we felt some extreme heat recently, and I'm looking at the statistics here that I printed out for myself. I mean, the highest max temperature last year was 110,
Mhm.
right? You missed that. Before that, in
Darn. Yep.
2023, it was 107, then 106,
Yep.
109. In 2020, it was 112.
Mhm.
Uh, we got lucky,
Yeah.
right? And it's not to say we don't see any temperatures above that,
Mhm.
but statistically speaking, the odds of that happening, they drop off. They get lower and lower as each day passes.
Mhm.
So we might have snuck away with a pretty decent summer,
Yeah.
meteorologically speaking.
Right.
2 heat waves, the mean temperature coming out to 74.4,
Mhm.
the average 74.5,
Mhm.
right? So this is what I was alluding to earlier, that the summer kind of felt cool compared to last year.
Right.
But when we look at the statistics and the averages, this is exactly what you'd expect, down to a tenth
Yeah.
of a degree. So very normal for us, and it's abnormal now to feel normal temperatures.
Right. One thing that I want to add to this, just comparison being new, the sun, the sun's strong, and you feel that the hotness, right?
Mhm.
One thing that is just way different is the humidity levels. If you go back east, you know how humid it feels. Sometimes you step outside and those dew points are near 70 degrees, and you just instantly sweat.
Yeah.
Here, it's different. It's hot, but you just don't have that feel to it.
Yeah, and I think that dry heat is
Mhm.
something that people not necessarily take for granted anymore. If they've traveled, they appreciate that. And
Yes.
yeah, it's something that you might even brag about. So back to more of that heat. Here's our 100-degree day count for the entire year. It turns out Sacramento is very close to average,
Mhm.
just one away from that mark. Stockton, 20 days. That is exactly average. Modesto, 14. And the records are listed at the bottom there. I mean, we're far from record territory, but Stockton and Modesto, again, Riley, you
Wow.
missed this. Last year
Right.
had a record amount of 100-degree days. So good job coming this year.
Yeah, well, I remember you telling me about last year, and even just going back and doing the research of how many days 100 degrees were over. I mean, the 49, correct, in Stockton and 45 for Modesto. That's so many.
Yeah, right. Those are the numbers. And in Sacramento, we've actually had 35 100-degree days
Mhm.
three times: 1988, 1961, and then 1960. So that 60-61 summer back to back.
Mhm.
Whew.
Yeah,
If anyone's in Sacramento, just absolutely brutal.
definitely.
All right, that's a breakdown of summer. Now it's time for our next installment of Ask Adam. And we had a great question this week. Let's jump into it. Welcome to another installment of Ask Adam. This week's question comes from Melissa Sandoval Mattern, and she asked, why do some summer thunderstorms in Sacramento produce lots of lightning but very little rain on the ground? This happens frequently in Sacramento, and it's a great question to dive into because it is so impactful for our fire season. The first thing we need to understand in order to answer this question is how thunderstorms form in the Sierra. It's through a process called orographic lift, meaning a geographical feature physically lifting the air. As wind hits a mountain range, obviously it can't go through, so it's forced upward. That moist, warm air rises and it cools. Now, cold air can't hold as much moisture as warm air, so that moisture gets squeezed out and condenses until the point where we see it as a cloud. And something interesting about clouds is most of them have flat bottoms. Look for that. And that's that level where it condenses. And there's a name for that. It's called the lifting condensation level, or LCL for short. That fluctuates depending on atmospheric conditions. Now let's take a closer look at what we have specifically in Northern California. What we're looking at here is the coastal range, the valley, and the Sierra. Typical thunderstorm pops up in the Sierra. You have rain coming to the ground. You have lightning. Here's a look at the elevations. 7,000 feet is about where Donner Summit is on Highway 80. Now behind the scenes, something we can't really see is the amount of moisture in the atmosphere at different levels. Generally, below a cloud and in higher elevations, you have high moisture. Then you get closer to the surface, it's very dry, low moisture, low relative humidities, and it's something that we're known for here around Sacramento.
is that it doesn't get humid very often. It's fairly dry at the surface. Now let's move that thunderstorm over into the Central Valley. And all of a sudden, this rain makes its way through that high moisture area, but gets to a point where it's so dry that it evaporates in the air. And that's what we call virga, rain that doesn't reach the ground. Now, while that rain doesn't reach the ground, lightning still does. That's what we consider to be dry lightning. And virga itself is something worth looking at. Now, it's hard to tell what you're seeing unless you know what you're looking for, and this is an example of that. Here's that cloud and the cloud base, and below it, it looks a little bit hazy, it's unclear. This is rain falling from that cloud, but evaporating in that dry layer of air. It also comes in different forms, and it can look like jellyfish. These are smaller clouds, and it's really pretty, it's fun to see in the sky, and you'll notice this here in Northern California, but it's kind of sad to look at too, because essentially what we're seeing is the death of a cloud. It is fading away and it is evaporating before our eyes. I love that question. Thank you so much for asking it. I hope you always continue to ask questions and stay curious.
All right, so that was our Ask Adam segment about dry thunderstorms. Riley,
Right.
you've seen this, I'm sure, in your career too, right?
Absolutely. I think it's really cool to see. And I mean, I know it's a dying cloud, but still, it's so neat to see. And it is really fascinating to know different layers of the atmosphere, and what happens with it and how, the moisture can evaporate, and really good description on dry lightning. And that's something that is important here and really to keep an eye on because we're in wildfire season.
We saw a lot of fires spark up yesterday, actually, because of exactly this. All right, coming up in a couple of minutes, Riley's going to teach us more about the economic and also environmental benefit of thrifting for your clothes and some other items. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
And welcome back. Thanks for joining us on Atmospheric Insight. Our next segment is something that I did. I had the privilege of going out and talking to a thrift store, Eco Thrift, here in Sacramento, and talk to the general manager about why it's important to recycle clothing and to buy secondhand because it helps save the environment. So these are some good tips that I learned from Kate, the
Right.
general manager.
It's something you may not think of all the time, but that's the point of Everyday Atmosphere, is to see that weather and climate impact through a different light. Let's jump into it.
Today we're visiting Eco Thrift here in Sacramento, a secondhand store thrift shop, and I'm meeting with Kate Govea, and she is the general manager, and she's going to be talking to us more about conscious consumerism and why secondhand stores are really important for the environment. Kate, thanks for meeting with us today.
Welcome.
All right,
Glad to be here.
so tell us a little bit more about what Eco Thrift is.
Well, I've been in business for, I started in 1996, and we've been, I think, my old boss's dad started it in the 60s, and it was a store in Stockton, and we've just sort of grown from there. This store used to be on Fruit Ridge, and it was a tiny store, and now we've grown into this big store, which tells you how much people really love to thrift.
What makes it unique about what you guys sell here?
Well, we have everything. I mean, anything from vintage to brand new stuff to today we just got in a video camera that's worth $900. It's brand new. You just don't know what people are going to donate.
Right.
And then we get everything from grandma's, all her treasures we get donated from that. And so there's a variety for everybody. There's something for everybody. I see a lot of younger kids coming in now. Retail prices are crazy right now. So when you come here, you can get everything from average stuff to stuff that's been in the stores in the last 6 months.
Right.
So,
And that's important.
it's important. 15 million pounds of waste that would have gone into the landfill is saved because we're recycling it here.
That's huge. Can you explain a little bit more about that? And that really kind of dives into the concept conscious consumerism and what that means. And I know your motto here is reduce, recycle, and reuse.
Yeah.
Tell me more about why that's so important, why you believe in that.
Well, because we feel like the more we put in the landfill, the more we're going to have trouble down the road. And all this stuff is, as you can see looking around you, all this stuff is great stuff. It's all usable. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all can be worn. It hasn't given up its lifetime yet. I mean, they're not things that are used and we throw it away. But these things, and we fill a whole store with stuff that has been discarded by somebody who doesn't want it. And so we feel like we have we can offer that to our community, where people who can't afford going to the retail stores, they can come here, especially if you have twins and you have, they can come here and you can spend, buy several things for $25.
Right.
But it just depends on what you want. But so it's fun. It's a lot of fun. This is I love my job because I get to see all the fun stuff that people donate that they don't want, whether it be something from this year's fashion or 50 years ago.
Right.
So
do you educate people that come in or talk to them about why they're doing that?
if a lot of people ask where we got it from, I don't know that they necessarily have that mindset. I think a lot of people just come in because it's affordable for them, and I don't know that that's in their mind, but I haven't had anybody really ask me. Most of the thing is, where do we get our merchandise from?
Right.
And stuff like that. So
Right.
I can imagine they would think something about it, because this obviously is used clothing, and so
Right.
it's
Right.
getting a second chance for sure.
So if somebody wants to come in and they want to come into Eagle Thrift and they want to donate,
Right.
how do they do it? If they come in and say, I have a ton of clothes, or I have
Yep.
this, what do you accept? What don't you accept? So
We don't accept anything, any large furniture, any TVs, monitors, stuff like that. If a driver can't pick up it by himself, we don't accept that. We don't accept books and stuff like that. So we always get books because they're always mixed in with other things. But so we accept pretty much everything. As you can see, we have a variety of
Right.
a million things here, and people always ask me, "Oh, do you take this?" I said, "We take everything. We just can't take the big bulky stuff because it's too heavy for the driver."
perfect. Well, Kate, I think that you hit some key points about how to come in and deliver, and so people can understand what this is about and how they can help save the planet, buy good clothes and other products for a cheaper price, how they can help donate. So tell us where you're located.
Where I live?
No, where you're located, the store.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm at 7224 55th Street in Sacramento.
Yep. And so if you want to come down and donate or maybe check it out, great place to visit and also help save the environment at the same time. Kate, thanks so much.
Thank you.
That was really great. And it's nice to educate people on this because, I have twins and they grow so fast. And one of the things that, Adam, that, I really wanted to get across with this is it is really important to reuse and recycle, whether it be clothing or anything. And fast fashion is something that we have to think about because it takes so much to make these clothes. Chemicals go into the environment. And so when you reuse and recycle, you eliminate that or help eliminate that. And that's something that we have to think about with climate change.
Oh, no doubt. And I think Kate also said something that resonates with me, that it's fun.
Mhm.
Like there's so many other ways that protecting the environment isn't as fun. Taking shorter, colder showers is not fun.
No, right.
But thrifting can be a great time. Riley, thank you so much for that story. Appreciate it. All right, coming up in 2 minutes, we're going to hear from Genevieve Melzer about how weather impacts some wine grapes locally here in Sacramento. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Atmospheric Insight. I'm your host, meteorologist Adam Epstein, joined by meteorologist Riley O'Connor. Riley, we just heard from you about how thrifting is a good way to help the environment, reduce, reuse, and recycle. And now we're going to hear about another interesting aspect of weather. This is from forecaster Genevieve Melzer. She's going to tell us about how weather impacts wine grapes in the region. Riley, are you a wine guy?
I am.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right, good. So this will be very relevant to you and everyone else who drinks wine. Check it out.
Weather impacts literally every aspect of our lives, including the wine that we drink. So I'm at Atchison Wine Company in Midtown in Sacramento to find out how the weather impacts the grapes that they use and what are the ideal growing conditions for wine in our region. So let's go meet the owner and the winemaker. Come on. We are joined by owner Lorraine Scott and winemaker Steve Birch. When is your growing season?
The season starts with bud break, and that usually depends on the area, but it could be anywhere as early as mid-February when the vines start growing to as late as late April. And then it runs until like the last grapes are usually picked in the coolest areas late October, early November.
Atchison grows their grapes in Lodi. Is Lodi a good place to grow?
Well, because there is a cooling influence from the Delta. It does cool off there more at night than it does here in the city. They have adapted to the increase in temperatures from climate change, like most places have. What it means right now is most grapes are harvested a little earlier than they were previously because they're getting ripe earlier.
How do the cooler temperatures at night impact the wine?
You retain acidity. You retain a lot more, for lack of a better way to put it, character. The grapes are going to have more color, they're going to have more tannin, they're going to have more character than grapes that have been exposed to heat and a warmer night.
Will Lodi be a sustainable location to grow wine in the future?
As temperatures go up, there's going to be more impact on the types of grapes you can grow in certain areas, and even whether or not you can grow grapes in certain areas, because the heat will get to a point where, yeah, the grapes get ripe, but do they make good wine? No. I mean, so grape culture, viticulture is going to be migrating towards the coast and towards the north. If you line up wines from, you got a wine from Carneros, and you got a wine from Lodi, and you got a wine from Nevada County, exact same grape, even grown exactly the same way, they're going to taste very different. Really? Very different. Different acidity, different chemistry, different fruit levels, different aroma characteristics, just by what the fruit expresses based on the climate that it's exposed to.
Have the California wildfires ever impacted your wine?
We were not as affected in Lodi, but there were certainly there were areas that had gotten some smoke damage. And the smoke damages the grapes in such a way that you don't know until you've fermented them. So you could bring the grapes in, you could taste them. Now there are tests, luckily, so that you can take the grapes to a lab that has the ability to test for the smoke markers, the chemical markers that say these grapes have been exposed to smoke, and not make wine out of them. Because it actually, the chemical compounds, really they soak through the skin and they cause the juice to taste like, well, in the worst cases, an ashtray.
How do you think the weather this year will affect your wine?
I actually have really, really, really high hopes for this year because we've had such a cool growing season, but now we're getting some heat. And traditionally, when we have that combination, we have higher quality wine. I won't get into the details. A buddy of mine did a bunch of neural net analysis of this when we were in college. We compiled 25 or 30 years of wine ratings versus weather data. And he plugged it into what was at the time the cutting edge AI program on his computer and came up with these parameters whereby if you have a cooler than average growing season, but you have a heat spike in August, possibly two, then you have the highest quality wine.
After talking with Steve, it sounds like the summer we had is perfect for wine growing. So I feel like we learned a lot and we drank some delicious wine. So check out Atchison next time you're in Sacramento.
That's a great story from Genevieve Melzer, and another installment of Weather Works. Riley, like she just said, seems like a pretty good season for wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Great facts there that they were throwing in and talking about it. Just the difference in, a little change in temperatures will make a big difference in grapes depending on where they are.
Yeah, a little fun fact about meteorology to leave you today is that the roots of why we study meteorology actually comes from agriculture. Growing season is so important and so dependent on weather, and that includes viticulture and those wine grapes. Riley, thank you for being here, and thank you everyone else for joining us for Atmospheric Insight. We'll see you again next week.